I'd like to welcome you today to the PEAR podcast, where we are uncovering real stories about women who have either come about to life in different ways, maybe not the normal traditional ways, but they have pivoted, they have explored, they have adapted, or they have repositioned themselves to get to where they are today. And my guest today is Christa Greenland, and she is the founder of the Minted Green Company, a marketing agency that works with clients worldwide. So welcome, Christa.
Thank you for having me.
And I think that as we go through some of these questions, it's going to be interesting to see, I think, your take on it, because all of us come from different points, not only in the globe, but I think in life in general. So I'd be interested to learn how your story began.
So, some of it kind of starts back in high school, like where I like thinking back to high school and being in classes and them talking about like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And who do you want to like, what career path do you want to do? And those type of things. And I was like, all I want to know is that I want to be a CEO of a company where nobody tells me what to do. Like, and that was my goal. I was like, I don't care what industry it's in. I just want to be the top, make my own decisions, make my own path, forge my own path, as opposed to like having to be that bottom worker.
So
And
you came out of high school, went into college, and did that give you any narrower path, or did that broaden it for you?
no, so when I went to college, I thought I was wanting to do accounting because I did it really well in school. And when I went to college, I took just a generalized business admin one and then was like fell in love with marketing. And so I moved into the marketing world. Um, I had to take the accounting courses as well. It's part of it. Part of what I didn't like about accounting was they mixed the numbers with the letters, and I just like the numbers. I didn't want to know about all the theory and all of the rules and stuff like that. Now that I've worked with some CPAs, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't do that. It's a little bit boring. But kind of going through that and walking and coming out with my degree in marketing was like, I found back in the day, so this is like the early 2000s, is like in order to get a job in marketing, it had to do with who you knew,
Sure.
not what you knew. And if you wanted an entry level job, you were going in as like door to door or telemarketer. Well, I already knew back then I didn't like talking on the phone, so telemarketing was not my thing. I did try the door to door. I lasted 3 days. I give myself that. I like because they like bring you in with this really cool ad, and then they like get you on the job so you can shadow it. And by the third day, I was like, I'm out. I was like, this is not for me. So I didn't do anything with it for years. And so from
And
there,
I think that's an important piece, though. It's important to know what you don't want to do as much as what you do want to do. And I think if you're trying to figure out where you fit, knowing that I don't want to do that is it's a step in the right direction. I think people need to realize that. I think sometimes they see it as failure, but I think it's more of a lesson learned because you did learn something from that experience.
well, it's part of the process. It's part of the path. It's part of the journey. And we discredit all of those little steps that get us to where we are and how we grow and transition through that. So I knew that I didn't want to do that. So then I was like, well, what do I do? And I, through there, was working in a restaurant, and I did some other like marketing things. So it was a pretty busy restaurant. And so they would be Sunday night football. So yes, up in Canada, there's lots of football fans. I am not one of them. But I ran for a full season Sunday night football and would do like tailgate parties and things like that and like different things in it. And so I kind of took on that role in the restaurant for a while and learned that. But even in that experience of working in that restaurant, which was a chain restaurant, I started out as a server and ended up, by the time I left, I didn't actually have the position of manager, but knew it all.
Yeah.
even in the kitchen stuff, right? And being cross-trained, one of the first people cross-trained within the whole corporation, from the front of the house to the back of the house. And so just shifting things like that, and even training people in new restaurants and things like that. So a lot of those skills that I learned help me today, help me in where I am. And so I went from there into working into coffee shops, I worked at a bank, and was in corporate and not really loving any of it. And then I had kids, and that changed everything.
It usually does.
It does. And so one of the big things about having kids was that both my husband and I were raised by stay-at-home moms.
Mm.
And so it was really important to us that we were home with our kids, one of us. And so when I was pregnant with my firstborn, Liam, I was working 2 jobs. I was working full-time at the bank and part-time at Starbucks. And so when my maternity leave ended, I had to make the decision of which job I was going back to.
Mm.
And the bank wouldn't fit within the hours that my husband Graham was working. So we had to make that decision of like what makes most sense for our family, so that I can stay home, because it was important that I was raising him and not putting him in daycare. And I understand that some people need to do that. So, but this is what's important for us. And so it was like Starbucks works. He comes home at 5, I start at 5:30. So we are like ships passing the night sometimes, where we don't really see each other, but it gave us the ability to adapt and work on what worked best with our family. And so that I was home with the kids. And so I did that for 3 years, and then my daughter was born. And when I went on mat leave, we were both at that point where like, we don't want to do this anymore, where I'm gone 3 nights a week. Every weekend I'm working, so that I could put in the hours that we needed for the income for the budget. I was working 5 days a week, just not full time. Because when you start at 5 o'clock and you're working in a Starbucks, you normally finish by 10, 10:30, 11. And so we were looking at different options for what could I do, still bring in a bit of income, but still have the flexibility that we wanted for our family. And that's when I got introduced to direct sales. So that makes a difference.
Yeah, because you can work that around your schedule rather than the other way around, where you have to
Yep.
fit into somebody else's work schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think especially when your children are young, and once they start getting it in the school age and they're in school, it's different. But even with that, you guys have taken a different approach.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll get to that. Because that was a whole transition and a shift as well. But moving into direct sales was the first time I kind of owned my own business. Because in direct sales, they teach you you're your own business owner, or network marketing, right? So it depends on that angle. And so if I didn't work, I didn't get paid.
Yep.
If I didn't do the things, then I had the ability to make my own income. And it was through some of that I was like, realizing that I was doing things in a marketing area within that business that was catching the attention of the company. And then they were featuring me in trainings with their leaders. Because I had friends that were part of the leadership team, because when you just rank up, you become a leader. And they were like, Christa, we just saw you and your family on the screen. I was like, cool. Just because I was different. I was just looking at a different perspective. And so it was through that I had different organizations within within it, right? That's how network marketing works. They build these tiers and stuff like that if you don't understand it. And I had some of their leaders asking me how to train their teams on things like Instagram. Instagram was where it kind of started out. That's where I like to hang out at that time. I'm more in LinkedIn now, but and teaching people that shifted me to be like, wow, I really love this. Whereas the direct sales network marketing company, I was like, this gives me freedom, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
There's still parameters that I have to sit around. There's still things that like I'm still told what I have to do. And I'm the person who's like, I don't want to be told what to do ever. You
You
tell
don't
me
like to have the restrictions placed on you. Yeah.
never. And so some of that kind of makes a difference of what am I doing and who am I doing this for and how am I doing it? And so that's kind of the transition where they were asking and I was like, wait, I could do this as a business. And then I started crunching the numbers and I was like, wait, I could make way more money doing this than doing that. And I remember having that conversation a couple of years ago. I was at an event and they were like, why haven't you ever like decided to go like do this? You can earn this kind of money. And I just looked at her. I was like, this is how much money I make an hour. She's like, yep, okay, I'm on. Because in the network marketing industries, they work really well, especially for moms.
Yeah.
But there is a cap on how much you can make an hour and how much you have to work. Yes, you have the flexibility, you can bring in the income, it can help supplement things. But I was making like 3 times the amount per hour that they could even offer me.
Right.
Because I have control over what I do.
Right. And I think too, as you know, as you work through that, I mean, you've not only learned your marketing skills now, but you've not only also learned processing skills through the other organizations that you worked for, but you've been building on this, you know, for each of the different types of jobs because they've definitely not been in the same industry sector. So
No.
you've kind of been jumping around to get it. So what was kind of the impetus for starting your Minted Green company?
I was unsatisfied with what I was doing. And I was going through a really rough period of time. And one of the leaders who I became really close with, and she was higher up in like the lines. She's like, you don't have to do this. She's like, you need to find what you love. Do what you love. Which is you don't find that very often when they're making money off of you.
Yeah.
Right. And it was that kind of encouragement of being like, what do I love? What do I want to be doing? Where do I want to be? Like, where do I want to be? And that's when they had asked me, she was one of the first ones who asked me to come in and train her team on how to use Instagram. And I was really sick at the time, and not knowing what was wrong. And so that's when I went through that and I walked out. I was like, I've been feeling like garbage, but I feel like amazing. Because and so that's what like opened up the door for me was like, hey, I'm going to do these Instagram workshops. I'm going to teach people how to use Instagram for your business because at the time, more people were using Instagram for their personal life. It was still more personal, and the business side of things for social media was just coming in. And so I like was excited and was teaching business owners how to use social media to build your business to as awareness and just developing that. And so that was huge. And there was ebbs and flows within my business because in the middle of that, or just, I guess in the beginning, I've been doing workshops for several months, maybe 5. And then COVID hit.
Mm.
And I was doing in-person workshops.
Oh, yeah.
Everything I was doing was in person. More of my clients were in person. Because that's where I started. And then I was like, wait, I can't. So I'm like, so then I like had to buy a Zoom account. Had to figure it out. And so I just adapted and shifted because of that. And that events like that will either push you forward or you'll crumble.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the stories that we've heard, you know, it's kind of what happened before COVID and what happened after. And like you're saying, you know, you had to learn new skills in order to, I think it's more than surviving. It really is thriving. How do I thrive in this environment and what do I need to change?
Yeah.
So you learned Zoom and how did that support what you were working on?
It went well. Like I was, because then I shifted from doing like do it for you stuff at a very low price into coaching and consulting and doing strategy sessions for people. So I just pivoted within so I did like 4 or 5 pivots during the COVID period, all to pivot back. So I started off where I was like writing content for people, more of the local businesses. And then I went on and jumped into a couple online things, right, to online communities. Like, how do I meet new people? And then through there, shifted my business into more of like a coaching type of thing, where I was doing strategy sessions and working sessions, then into running like 8-week program, which I had success with through running Facebook ads. They were like, and this is before, like, now people don't even care about Facebook. Like, there's lots of those things don't work right now. And even jumping into business clubs and different networkings, which is how I met you. All because of COVID and just me connecting with people from living in Canada to people who like more Americans. And so I have a whole slew of you beautiful neighbors in my pocket that I like hang out with all the time. Not met any single one of you in person.
No, you haven't. Nope.
There's tons of people that I'm like good friends with now that I've never met in person. And I like, that's what I like about COVID. It changed that, right? And so we adapted to it. And so there were shifts to that. And then I think it was the end of 2021, I jumped into a program for somebody big name. I'm not going to name drop who that is. But it did transform my life and my business. And right around that time, I thought, you know what, maybe I'm going to go back into building content for people. And I went through this 3-day boot camp and I made that decision. I mentioned it to 2 people and within 24 hours had earned like $1,500.
Yeah.
And it just grew. And so even as I went through that program, my income grew by 400% within 6 weeks. Like, it was crazy. And when I look back now, it was all the things from high school to that point that got me to being able to do what I did, because everything was learning. Like, I ended up in management constantly, right? So like, I know how to manage people. I know how to manage employees. I know how to manage customers. I know how to build that customer relationships and the customer care and stuff like that. So in business, it's easy.
And I think what you're doing though is it's not always about the money. The money's nice. It's something that we need to not only survive on, but it needs to be there to be able to do things with that we enjoy. But if the passion isn't there, then I don't know about you, but there's no amount of the money in the world that will keep me where I'm at if the passion isn't there.
Yeah, well, I have to watch myself because I get bored. And I think it's just personality of who I am and what I'm doing. And when I get bored, I realize I'm not being creative enough. And so, which is shocking, because if you look at my life, because we now homeschool my kids, we've done a couple moves. You're probably like, how are you bored? I was like, you'd be surprised. I got like a couple squirrels living in my head. So like, you get bored quickly. Well, look,
And a couple of cats.
and a couple cats. That's just one of them. I don't know that the other one's going to show. But yeah, and I'm busy, very busy. And so going through that and that transition within my income and my business, having it finally take off, allowed our family to make shifts and changes that we were wanting or didn't even know that we wanted, but they opened up the opportunity for it.
Yeah.
And so,
and I think just stepping back a little bit, you talked about how you had problems with your health, and I think even that sometimes, to being able to take care of yourself in what you're doing, sometimes the environment that you're working in or how you're working has to change, so that you can take care of who you are and what you need to be moving forward.
Yeah, no, and it's important to be able to stop and say, what is this? And so right around the same time that my business had grown, I remember my husband coming to me and be like, I don't want to live here anymore. So we lived just outside of Toronto in the GTA, the metropolis of it. And we're like, it's crazy. Like, is this where we want to raise our kids? And that's the conversation that we have to have, is like, is this what we want to do? Is this where we want to raise our kids? Is this where we want to be the rest of our lives? Is this the best thing for them? And we made the decision no, but had no idea how we get out. And then the beginning of 2022, I'm like, I have a way out. Like, I now can afford for you to leave your job and cover the bills and have that, like, and we did a humongous major transition and did one. They say that there's like 3 or 4 like major things in your life that are crazy high stress. Yeah, we did several of them. All of us. Like changing a job, moving, having a baby, death. Like we didn't have a baby and there was no death, but my husband quit his job and became a stay-at-home dad. And we moved 6 hours north of Toronto, which, as my American friends like to call it, the North Pole, and because it was straight north, and to a place where we never been. We bought a house for the first time ever. We had been renters, and it was a fixer-upper. And let me tell you, we'll never do that again.
Life
So many
lesson.
learning life lessons. I was like, nope, that's not our thing. I like painting walls. We'll leave it at that. But we learned a whole lot. And that transition was really good and really hard. And so we lasted less than 3 years in the Great White North. And then we moved across the country. And so we didn't go back to Toronto. We went to the East Coast. And so we're just north of Maine in a province called New Brunswick, fairly close, like I'm 20 minutes from the ocean. We have a little bit more amenities, like there's Costco's close by. Important things in life. But there's people. Whereas there wasn't a whole lot in Northern Ontario, but I was able, but some of that, even just those transitions were big for my business. It allowed me to focus on building foundations in this crazy growth that I would have. But it allowed us to establish a good routine for homeschooling, because we do enjoy that. And then even moving to the East Coast allowed us, we had some of those foundations set for the homeschooling, but here we're now allowed to integrate into community and integrate with people. And so it's, some people will call that, like, I was in a desert season. Like a season of self-discovery, a season of like, what is it that we want? What is important to us? And sometimes I don't think we recognize those seasons.
True.
We just look at, oh, I can't wait for this to be done. It's no different than how many times you hear somebody saying, I cannot wait for this year to be done.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's February.
Yeah.
You will never ever hear me say that. I will never talk negatively about a year or anything that's happened, no matter how difficult it is, because of the lessons I learned.
Yeah. And I think that's an important piece in life too, is that to realize that, it's not all roses, and that you learn so much more sometimes from the struggles and the challenges that you deal with, and then you just celebrate the wins as they come along, not just the big ones, but the little ones. But I mean, you're looking healthy. You seem happy where you are now. I mean, not that you haven't been, but I think there's definitely more there than what there has been for a few years.
Yeah, no, and it's huge, right? Like, and I'm grateful for that season. And when I jump into seasons, I embrace them. I embrace where I am always. I don't look for the negative. I don't look for the reasons why I don't want to be here. I recognize we live in seasons. And so they do change, but I'm so grateful to be here as my kids are moving into, like, they're both in double digits now, right? And so Liam will be turning 14 soon. And I need him around teenagers, a variety of them. In Northern Ontario, we're very limited. And it's like, I don't want him hanging out with those people.
Yeah.
The influences for our kids, right? And so it's not so much for me, because like I said earlier, most of my clients I've never met in person.
Yeah.
I have team members who work for me around the world. which is cool that I've been able to grow that in the past couple of years from decisions I've made and things that I've learned on what kind of business owner I want and what kind of people I want working for me based off of what my experiences have been in the past.
Yeah.
But we don't have to meet in person.
No.
To run, to do the things we want to do. And so it's like, what kind of life do I want to live?
Yeah. And for some people, I think that works really well. I mean, there are people that probably could not live the type of lifestyle that you're living. So, I mean, to be able to make those choices and know that this is a good fit for you, and for
Yes.
your family is important because you're not doing this solo. You are doing this. So if you were asked to give advice to some woman who was stuck and just needs to shift, what kinds of advice would you give?
I would tell them to stop and step back. And anytime I get stuck with something, and because normally when we're stuck, there's a whole slew of negative emotions that come with it.
Mm,
We get frustrated, we get irritated, we get snappy at the people we love, like things stop working well, like we just shut down. Generally, is what happens when we're stuck. And I've discovered that when I stop and I step back and breathe, and if you need to, hug a tree. It's not something I do. Some people need to hug a tree, put your feet in the sand or the grass or whatever, grab a cup of coffee, whatever works for you. I walk away from it completely. If I'm stuck or frustrated, I shut everything down and walk away. And sometimes I wait for those feelings and emotions to leave or to dissipate a bit. And then I come back with a different perspective.
yeah.
And I look at it and say, what do I need to do to change and shift?
Yeah.
So what's causing me to be stuck? Is it a mindset? Is it something that I don't know? Is it something that I need to shift personally? Do I need help with this? And so that just walking away from it and refreshing my brain and coming back, looking at it differently is probably the biggest thing that's helped me be able to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I think sometimes what we try to do is we try to stay the course and push through no matter what. And sometimes that is so energy draining. It's hard to kind of see the trees for the forest. You're stuck. You just cannot do it. So being able to step back a little bit and breathe and recenter yourself on where is it I need to go, is super important. So I want to thank you very much for your story today and for being vulnerable with, telling where you've come from and what you're doing. And if you'd like to know more about Christa Greenland and her Minted Green Company, check for links in the show notes, and you can connect in with her and find more about what she does with her marketing agency. Thank you.
Thank you.